How do, kiddos? Feels great. So, give you guys 3 guesses as to where I am. Any guesses? Now you got any guesses? I'm poolside. I'm back in Gettysburg. Some of you might be familiar. I am at the Quality Inn. Across the street, of course, we got the Best Western, Gettysburg Heritage Center. It's where you find your tour guides. Oh, there's one walking out right now in the blue shirt. And right over yonder, directly across the street, you got Appalachian Brewing Company. Yeehaw! I'll be heading there soon. And I got the whole pool to myself. Just great. I'm sorry, guys. I have seen the battlefield over and over and over again. I know some of you who live far away would probably thinking to yourselves, you dingbat. Why are you wasting your time hanging out at the pool when you're in Gettysburg? You know how many times I've seen that battlefield? All parts of the battlefield. I mean, go back and ride reel, guys. It's all there. Anyways, I'm gonna do some quick reading on 00 Howard. Let's see. Since the Army of the Potomac's 11th Corps had followed Reynolds' 1st Corps to Gettysburg, so you know, again, the whole first day is pretty much about 2 corps, the 1st Corps and the 11th Corps. All right, you know, the 1st Corps, of course, started under John Fulton Reynolds, and then was temporarily transferred to Abner Doubleday. The 11th Corps belonged to Oliver Otis Howard, or as I call him, 00 Howard. And don't forget, you know, it's funny, they earned the nickname the Flying Dutchman from a semi-controversial performance at Chancellorsville. But about half the corps was actually German. So there he is. Follow to Gettysburg. General Howard rode ahead while waiting for the arrival of his 3 divisions and artillery. Howard originally planned to encamp along the Emmitsburg Road south of town, in the vicinity of fruit dealer Joseph Shervy's peach orchard. Howard heard gunfire and saw the long line of the 1st Corps ahead of him. Gotta turn the page. Saw the 1st Corps ahead of him, cutting across country towards Seminary Ridge. A messenger arrived from Reynolds with instructions to come up to Gettysburg. Howard then sent a staff officer in search of Reynolds for additional instructions. Howard and another officer then made a brief reconnaissance of this area. They rode to a prominent hill south of the town and near the local Evergreen Cemetery. From there, Howard had an excellent view. Seeing the military benefits of this cemetery hill, Howard remarked, "This seems to be a good position." And it's funny because they don't mention Winfield Scott Hancock in this paragraph, although that quote kind of actually belongs, I think, to his conversation with Hancock. This seems to be a good position. Howard then continued into town, where a local youth named Daniel Skelly led him to an observatory on the roof of a building occupied by a large dry goods store. Howard and a staff officer climbed into this observatory and swept the countryside with field glasses. While Howard studied the landscape, a sergeant rode up and shouted from street level, "General Reynolds is wounded, sir." At perhaps 10:30, a staff officer returned and announced, "General Reynolds is dead, and you are the senior officer on the field." So again, the transfer of leadership happened pretty quickly. Kind of goes without saying that it caused a slight bit of chaos and an upheaval. Reynolds was dead. Doubleday briefly took control, but then the control went to Oliver Otis Howard in the 11th Corps until, and I've kind of gone over this before, until Winfield Scott Hancock showed up, and there was a little a little tiff between them, but it was polite, and Hancock handled it delicately, and eventually assumed control of the Army of the Potomac on day one. Howard then sent messages to Major General Carl Schurz, placing him in temporary command of the 11th Corps, to Dan Sickles in Emmitsburg, requesting the 3rd Corps come forward, and to the senior Major General Henry Slocum, whose 12th Corps was only about 5 miles away at 2 taverns. So on the first day, it was really pretty much, like I said, these 2 corps, the 1st Corps and the 11th Corps, Reynolds's and Howard's. Later on in the day, Hancock's corps was to show up, and then somewhere between the end of day 1 and the beginning of day 2, we start to see Sickles, Sykes, Slocum come in with their corps as well. I'm forgetting somebody. That's mostly it. The corps, by the way, from the Army of Potomac were 1st Corps, 2nd Corps, 3rd Corps, but then it skips around a bit. There weren't, just because there was an 11th Corps under Howard does not mean that there were 11 Corps in total under the Army of the Potomac. It was 1st Corps, 2nd Corps, 3rd Corps, 5th Corps, 6th Corps, 11th Corps, and 12th Corps. And I think I listed everybody. I forgot Sedgwick. So there's Sedgwick, Sykes, Sickles, 3 S's. I'm sorry, Slocum, 4 S's. Oliver Otis Howard, and in the beginning, John Reynolds. But basically what I wanted to say is, Oliver Otis Howard is kind of disliked by some Civil War buffs or Gettysburg buffs, and I'm not exactly sure why, but I think it's for 2 major reasons. First of all, it's because of his, like I said, semi-controversial performance at Chancellorsville, and I don't have the time to go into that, guys, but you can look into that more yourselves. And also he was a very religious guy. So he was religious before the time of the Civil War, but just before the Civil War he became very evangelical, and he was often kind of joked about and ridiculed by the men underneath him for being as such, which kind of strikes me funny, because people were quite a bit more religious back then than they are nowadays, and I'm not sure why he was kind of the butt of jokes for being an evangelical Christian back then. But they that may have had something to do with his reputation. Anyways, on day 1, he made the decision, like others, to stand and fight. He did not make the decision to hightail it back to Maryland and draw himself closer to the other corps who were pulling up, who were 5 miles away, 10 miles away, what have you. He made the decision to stand and fight, and for that, I think he deserves some respect. Anyhow, guys, I am out of time, and I'm going to enjoy the pool here for the rest of the afternoon and evening, get something to eat, and we'll hit the battlefield tomorrow. See ya.